The trade deadline is coming up quickly, and we brought on the only two guys we wanted to bring on for this very special occasion. It's Locked On Chargers, and it's Chargers Unleashed.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. And today, joined from the guys of Chargers Unleashed, Dan Wolkenstein and Jake Hefner. Very excited to talk with you guys, and we have a lot to get into. The Chargers 8 games in, but thank you all for making us your first listen. For the everydayers out there, to make sure you don't miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as following the Chargers Unleashed show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from as well. We have a lot to get into today because the trade deadline's next week. There's only one more game for the Chargers to decide if this is a team they kind of want to go all in on, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about with the struggles and some of the things that have happened so far, if they are still a playoff team in our minds at this point, and of course, the meteoric rise of one Oronde Gadsden II. I mean, I'm all in on the hype train. We will see if Dan and Jake are all in on the hype train as well. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Dan, Jake, thank you for coming on the show today, guys. It's been a minute. Always great to have you on. I think this is the first ever Locked On Chargers live guest appearance, so you're welcome for that. Dan, what's up, man? How you doing?
I am good. I was going to say, this is the first time going live with you fellas. This is fun. Appreciate you having us on. Happy, what is it, Tuesday? Happy Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, and we had the one, Jake, where we were all in studio for that super cool live show several years ago.
Not all of us.
Well, some of us live in Texas, but that was the closest thing to this. But Jake, thank you as well for coming on the show, even though David had to get left out of the last one.
Of course, man. First of all, I have to give it to you, and this is true whether it's for this episode or any of your other episodes that you do, to get a little sneak peek behind the curtain. Dave, is that how he contemplates with himself whenever he's about to do an intro? Hang on a second, I got to think about what I'm going to say. Silently rattles his head for a couple seconds and then just goes to work because it's money time every time. It's such a great intro. It's time to get hyped. Gets you to want to watch this podcast, talk some Chargers football. Let's go to work.
Daniel's
so
a machine.
Nice things.
He always has been. He always will be. He is definitely a huge part of why this show is as successful as it is. You'll never hear him sing his own praises, so I have to do it for him.
Well, this has been all too nice so far, and it's time to get into the Justin Herbert Madison beer content that everybody wants to get into. Now, obviously, that's been wild. Seeing Justin Herbert everywhere. If you would have told me that 2 months ago, I would have said, no, you're crazy. He is not that guy. There's no way you're going to catch him on camera 3 days in a row at World Series games and Lakers games, and also Halloween parties dressed up as a sailor. But this is the world that we live in now, and the Chargers are 5-3, 8 games in. Felt really good at 3-0. Felt much less good when the Chargers went 1-3, 1-3 after that. But now 1-2 of the last 3. And now next week, the Chargers have to decide whether they're going to make more additions to this team, Dan. And I think it's interesting. Me and David have talked about it a bunch where it's just you've already traded two of your picks away, a 5th and a 7th in 2026. We know this team still needs more players, and they're not necessarily full-on contenders at this point with what they've shown us so far. They already traded for Odafe away, but the two questions I have for you, Dan, are, should the Chargers be making a trade? And if so, what position should they be looking to add?
I mean, I think everyone knows that if there's anybody available on the offensive line on this trade market come deadline, that's the bold, right? Everyone understands depth at tackle and some possibly starting offensive line for the interior would be huge. The passing grades for that group, aside from Joe Alt and weirdly Bobby Hart from a pass protection perspective, has been absolutely atrocious. We're talking red and orange grades on PFF for everybody. Yeah. And it's not great, Bob. It's not great. So clearly offensive line. The other one, and a lot of people talking running back, it depends on the Amari Hampton injury and when he's coming back, if he's coming back sooner rather than later. If it's going to be on the first end of that 4-week span, then maybe you let it ride. You don't have to worry about it. But if he's going to be gone for a few weeks after that, I think you have to add to Jared Patterson, Kamani Vidal. As great as Kamani has been so far this season in these limited spurts, 2 out of the last 3 weeks, you can't bank on that every week. And when you have an offensive line that is in shambles as it's been so far this season, you want to have some insurance policy at the position behind it. So those would probably be my 2. Defensive end was a huge one that I'm glad they got Dafe Owe. And the other part that I'm getting a little concerned about, and it's kind of weird now with Alohi Gilman kind of not on this team anymore, but of course, right when Alohi Gilman gets traded, it's like all safeties on this team get injured, right? You got Tony Jefferson, gets injured. Derwin James gets injured. You see Tarheeb Still go out. So like there's a lot of flux on the secondary. So maybe secondary, but I mean, Steve Klingscale, Jesse Mentor, I mean, they 2 of those guys up like crazy. So maybe then.
What do you think, Jake?
I think we're in a little bit different situation than where we were 2 weeks ago in terms of our feelings. Because, say what you will about the opponents in Miami and Minnesota, Kamani Vidal is throwing water on that fire for a running back right now. He's done that. And Dan makes a good point. Hey, you may get Omarion Hampton back next week if he's on the closer to 4-week side, eligible to come off IR next week, to where you might get him back. And Dan and I have had this conversation ad nauseum when it comes to offensive linemen. Nobody is going to trade solid offensive linemen, even if they're going down in a tanking season. You're just not going to see it. I've seen reports out there as for trade possibilities, even if they would entertain it, for Jack Conklin as a possibility to come in to bolster that offensive line a little bit more. I just don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. Not to say that they can't, because as we've talked about, they've already traded away 2 of their picks for next year's draft. And as of right now, you have, 5 remaining? I don't know if you're going to want to part with any more than that, because we know how much Joe Ortiz loves his draft capital. At the same time, you are in a position right now where it's like right on the fence to say, yeah, this Chargers team could use a little bit more. And whether that's running back, offensive line, or as you saw some of the free agency moves today that they went out and getting Marcus Williams to bolster that secondary a little bit more, and Kyle Pecco to bring in for depth. Again, these are just practice squad signings, but still, you feel like it's like right on the fringe. So if the deal makes sense, if all the numbers make sense, then yeah, why not? But at the same time, I think we're in a different situation than what we were feeling 2 weeks ago.
It's funny that you bring those guys up. Obviously, the Chargers did make some moves. The 3 members of their secondary getting banged up, as you talked about, right? Derwin James, Tarheeb Still, Tony Jefferson. They added, Marcus Williams and Kyle Pecco. But the most interesting name here, obviously, is Marcus Williams, who only a couple of years ago was playing at a very high level in that Mike McDonald Ravens defense. What do you make of the latest news there, Dan Wolkenstein?
I don't know. You saw videos today. You saw Derwin James was out there practicing, so that gave me very good vibes, right? That hopefully it's not anything serious. The fact he's already out there walking on the field doing his thing, that's encouraging. In my opinion, I think it's one of those insurance policy components for this defense. I'm curious what goes on with the interior defensive line. We already know Tito was out. It's on IR, got injured. Naquan Jones, I believe, is also injured as well. So
Deshaun Hand on IR.
Deshaun Hand, there's a lot of beat up folks in that inside. So maybe there's reinforcements for that. But to me, I think it's just if you just close your eyes and you look at this entire Charger season so far, and it's what is the one thing that is keeping them from being a contender? Everyone unanimously would say it's the offensive line.
Yeah.
And so anything that's not that, it's well, how much does it move the needle? I don't know. Everything else, literally any other position, I don't know how important it is.
No, I totally agree. And I think the one thing is also as far as the trade part goes, it's you're not one piece away, right? And that is an important part of the conversation. So if you aren't one piece away, what are you willing to give up with? But I do think, Jake, that you do have some confidence in this team, because what they were able to do with Eli Apple last year and Marcus May last year, that it's man, just give Steve Klingscale or, Mike Elston, a couple of these guys, even if they're practice squad guys, and it's not hard to believe that they'll be contributing very soon.
Yeah, you see that right away. And Odafe Owe, who didn't have any sacks in Baltimore, comes right over to the Chargers, gets 2 sacks in consecutive games. And it's great to see what he can do when he's paired with Tooley and Mack at the same time. Jesse Minter can finally put that defensive component that he really likes together when he's got 3 pass rushers of that type of skill set. So, yeah, you've seen evidence of it already. When you make a trade, it comes in, it works out for you and pays immediate dividends. But at the same time, for the remaining positions that we're possibly talking about, you may be getting guys back on the roster very soon, or Dan Wolkenstein's favorite comment, force multiplier Joe Alt just seems to make everybody in the offensive line look better, especially in the run game.
Yeah, man, it feels like he has that Corey Linsley effect, which is much more confusing because he's on, the far other side of things from most of the guys on that line. But it's hard to really argue with the, results that we've seen so far. He comes back. It looks like another unit. At the same time, Justin Herbert was working some miracles in that game, too. There's a reason why we were praising him so much, and it wasn't because he was well protected the entire game from especially the interior. But there are those flaws, and we know what this team is kind of through 8 games right now where it stands. Are they still a playoff team? We're going to get into all that and more with the guys of Chargers Unleashed and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Mazda because Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IAHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. If the Chargers played like Mazda cars every week, they'd probably be undefeated right now at this point, 8 weeks in. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, but you never have to worry about that because with Mazda, you can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping up at checkout, it's super frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. There's nothing more frustrating than being like, oh my God, I got these great deal on tickets, and then you get to check out service fees, 7 other different fees, and now you're paying almost twice as much as that you thought you were going to pay. You're not going to get that with Gametime. And if you want to make a road trip this weekend to Nashville, it's a great place to go to an away game. You can get into that game for $26 on Gametime. I had to do a double take on that. I mean, crazy low prices to get in. If you want to stay home and catch the next game at SoFi, it's a big one right now. Sunday Night Football against the Steelers in a couple of weeks. That's a huge game, and you can get tickets for less than $200. And keep your eye on it because the prices go down the closer you get to kickoff. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, boys. Well, we still have much more to get into because this is a team right now that is hard to figure out a little bit. Are you the team that was 3-0? Are you the team that went immediately 1-3 after that? Or are you the team that we saw last week beat the brakes off of the Vikings? Because that was a dominant win. They showed us everything they could in that game. But at the same time, it's going to take more than that, right? I think, and beating better teams for us to be fully convinced that not only that this team is, a real playoff favorite, but that they're contenders to actually do something once they get there. Because we all know what the, thing is around this team. And the one part of it that they couldn't solve in the regular season was Justin Herbert getting the monkey off his back and winning a playoff game. But you have to get there first. And the AFC is weird this year, Dan. And the Chargers have been a tough team to figure out. It's unclear kind of what their ceiling is right now with the injuries that they have, with the guys that we don't know when they're coming back, if they're coming back. So I think through 8 games, a lot of Chargers fans are wondering who went into the season, hey, this is a playoff team. Anything less than that is a disappointment. Do you still feel like this is a playoff favorite 8 games in?
Man, that is tough. I
didn't bring you on here to answer the easy questions.
I have been known to be an eternal optimist until these last few years. And I try to pave the way looking at reality and tether my optimism to reality when I can.
I'm so proud of you.
So I'm looking at the schedule right now, and going into the season, I had the Chargers winning 10 games. And right now, you look at this team as a whole, 5 games in the win column so far, and I look at the games now in context that are left. I see 4 games that are wins. I see Titans win, I see Jaguars win, I see Raiders win, and I see the Cowboys win. That's 4. You tell me which one of these are automatic wins. Steelers, Eagles, Chiefs, Texans, Broncos, all 5 of those, I can see them losing. I can also see them winning, but I'm not confident in any of them. So I feel pretty confident they're going to get to 9. Can they sneak in one more? I think 10's the magic number, in my opinion. To me, though, it really depends on the health of this team. You see the difference with Joe Alt and without Joe Alt. You see the difference when Justin Herbert is being battered. You see the difference when they have no run game and when they have no edge production. Like, that is the difference in this Chargers team. So if they continue down this path of getting more guys healthy, I think they can. I think they could be that team that's the juggernaut first 1 through week 3, where they beat teams that no one thought they could beat. Then sure, they can win more than they lose. But if they continue to go down this path where they gain 1, lose 3, it's going to be tough. Right now, I think 10 is the magic number. They're halfway there. And I think health and efficiency will be what gets them over the hump. If they don't have that, they ain't going nowhere.
Well, and I think that's the thing, Jake, is just like, those are the games they should win. The problem is they're going to probably have to win a couple of the games that you don't know that they're going to win and that aren't the guaranteed games, right? And I think that's what will tell us not just if this team's going to make the playoffs, but if they're going to be ready to play the teams that they have to when they get there. Because I think the hard thing is you just watched them play one of the AFC contenders, right? You got the break speed off you. Obviously a banged up, battered team, but there's no reason to think that you're not going to get to the playoffs and still be kind of a banged up, battered team. And you also know with the way things are heading, Justin Herbert has to be healthy for these last 9 games for them to have a realistic chance. And we know it's unsustainable, the hits that he's taken through the first 8 weeks. And I think that plays a part in kind of how you feel about this team and if they're going to make the playoffs or not.
Yeah, and before I give my my comment on this, strangely enough, I feel compelled to buy a Mazda. Who out there owns a Mazda, and when did Daniel Wade convince you to get it?
We have sold a car on this show.
We did sell a car.
There you go. There you go. See, moving needles. Yep. As it relates to some of those aspects for this Chargers team, because yes, you look at that game against Minnesota, and while it was so great to see them play so efficient like that in all 3 phases of the game, it's also frustrating when you look back at that 4-game stretch where they go 1-3, and literally 49 seconds outside of a Justin Herbert Superman drive to Ladd McConkey, you could potentially be staring 0-4 in the face during that period of time. And it was from a multitude of different things. It was injuries to the offensive line. You didn't have a running game. Your defense, which normally has been a crutch for you with Jesse Minter in the past, looked like an abnormation of itself, just was a complete shell, unrecognizable, players just not communicating, looking out of position. Derwin James, up until that stretch, was the league leader in missed tackles. I mean, when the hell have we ever used that type of a stat for Derwin James? It just didn't make any sense. And then you get to Minnesota, and you're like, that's the Jesse Minter defense that we all know. That's the aggressiveness. That's players flying around. That's not even talking about the offense. Look at how many more opportunities that gives Justin Herbert. And when they're efficient enough, remember, they came into this game against Minnesota last in the league in red zone offense. They went 3 for 4 in their drives for the red zone. Like, that's the numbers that they have to climb back to. And yes, while Minnesota is a good step in the right direction, you just need to see more consistency of that. For the Chargers, good news, this next 4-game stretch, you got plenty of opportunities to do that given the opponents. Pittsburgh's got one of the worst defenses in the league. You're going up against the Titans and former head coach Mike McCoy, which should be fun this weekend. You have the Jaguars mixed in there as well. We all know what the Raiders are. In my opinion, there was no reason why you shouldn't go out and clear the board in the next 4 games. But to Dan's point, we covering this franchise knows what happens from time to time, and it sucks.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I think very simply, right, we all know that the Chargers loaded up on weapons this offseason and kind of neglected the interior of the offensive line. If they don't make it, can we all agree it's probably because of that lack of investment on the O-line?
I don't know if I can say that that's the sole cause of it, because you go back to the Giants game. That's very uncharacteristic. 14 penalties in that game. You shot yourself in the foot. You even found a way to climb back into it and almost could come back to win it. You were getting in a rhythm certain times. Obviously, turning the ball over isn't going to help. You start off fast against Washington, and then you just get bum rushed straight for 27 unanswered points. Again, penalties in that game. The Miami Dolphins game, I would say I would have put more of the crux on that on defense. Just like everybody was out of position. They were just letting Waddle, Waller, Tua get off whatever they want until Justin Herbert had to put the Superman cape on to take him to a victory. And then Indianapolis just came and just ran you over and did whatever they want. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it has to deal with the investment in the offensive line. And I know that we can go back and we can look at hindsight 2020. And trust me, I was an advocate for this when it came to the draft. I was excited when Andre James was signed as a free agent, thinking that they were going to bolster it along with Mekhi Becton for, building up a different offensive line than they had the year before. But I don't know if I could say that that's the only reason that this team would falter if you just put the blame on offensive line.
I would say it's the main reason. I would say it's the main reason why this Chargers team has not achieved more success, right? But that's also tethered to injury.
Yeah.
No one expected Rashawn Slater to not play a game this season, right?
Sure.
You can't imagine that. And the reality is when he and Joe Alt go down, along with your running backs 1 and 2, that combination is critical. And then what you're left with is Mekhi Becton, who is not playing great this season. I went back and looked just to make sure that my eyes weren't deceiving me. Mekhi Becton so far this year, pass blocking grade 48.5, run blocking grade 40.4. That's
out of 100?
Orange red.
Is that out of 100?
Yep, that is out of 100. The fact that the best linemen you have are Joe Alt and Bobby Hart, that's not great. That's really bad. Everyone else, Trey Pipkins in the 40s and 50s. Austin Deculus, don't even need to talk about that. Mekhi Becton, we mentioned. Bradley Bozeman is in the He's in the all 40s. Zion Johnson is in the 50s. Got 60.0 pass blocking grade. Foster Sorrell, 40s and 50s and 30s. That's your offensive line. So I don't know if it's lack of investment or if it's just lack of talent right now because of injury and lack of investment.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is outside of Mekhi Becton, you've been pretty healthy on the interior of the offensive line, right?
Yeah.
Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson haven't missed a game this year. The problem is that you thought if we have 2 great tackles, it doesn't really matter what's in between them. At least that's what their moves have told me, because in 2 seasons, you spent 1 draft pick on an interior offensive lineman that got cut immediately after you drafted him this year. And then outside of that, you made 1 significant free agency investment, and you waited till the last second and got, an oft-injured Mekhi Becton. I was high on the signing too. But I think they thought a lot of their run blocking prowess, which hasn't existed really necessarily this year with those guys, would help make up for their deficiencies in pass protection. And that just hasn't been the case. And we were hooting and hollering about it when Daniel Popper was asking Joe Ortiz, and Joe Ortiz saying, we got 11 wins, right, Pop? That's pretty good. Not good enough, because you got those in spite of the interior of the offensive line, not because of it. So we do have more to get into, because we have to, let's get to the nicer things. And the nicer things are Oronde Gadsden II, who's been an absolute superstar. Time to rein back, temper expectations, or full throttle on the hype train for Oronde Gadsden. We're getting into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Well, thank you, Cody. It's so crazy that he makes time every day to come do that Peloton read for us. I love my Peloton for sure. But even on a special live show, he takes the time to do it. Appreciate you, Cody. Let's get back to things, guys. We have a Oronde Gadsden, important Oronde Gadsden talk to get into before we get into Justin Herbert, Madison Beer content, of course. But it's been crazy. I was high on, Oronde Gadsden. We were talking with the Guilty as Charged guys before the season 2, where it's like, yeah, he's could be really good, but let's temper expectations a little bit. Well, that's gone off the rails for me because I'm done with tempering expectations. Oronde Gadsden, to me, easily could be the best Chargers tight end since Antonio Gates, and I don't feel crazy saying that. And, I mean, it's really your one Hunter Henry kind of a way there. There hasn't been much outside of that except for, journeymen and veterans. But, Jake, are you still tempering your expectations for Oronde? Or are you fully aboard? Are you going to come and join me on the crazy train of just like, hey, this dude is great. He's great right now. He's already kind of one of the best, receiving tight ends at the very least in the league.
The only thing that tempered expectations for Oronde Gadsden is my fantasy team when I kept him on the bench in favor of Tucker Kraft. Now, thankfully, I still won this week.
Tucker Kraft
I thought to myself
this week. Yeah,
I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what?
Should have flexed him.
That indie game was all world from Oronde Gadsden to have that type of a breakout one. But I'm like, okay, let's just see just a little bit more consistency before I throw him into the starting lineup. And, hey, great performance to follow up from him. I love the fact that Oronde Gadsden Sr. says that he's riding his fantasy bench and will not put him in the starting lineup because he doesn't want to jinx
Seems like
it.
you got to do the same thing.
Yeah, you got it.
But I would do Dan Wolkenstein a disservice if I led off on this topic because Dan has been the one that has been pounding the Oronde Gadsden hype train since we started breaking down tight ends back in March. And so I'm going to let Wolkenstein take the reins on this comment.
He is him for sure. And
yes, I called this. I was right. I'm great. You're welcome.
Yes, I every one of my takes, every one of my draft prospects I talk about, I am right about clearly. But no, the archetype for what this Chargers team needed was one like Oronde Gadsden. You look at the Evan Ingram archetype, you look at the Colston Loveland back in Michigan type. That is what they were seeking after, that 6'4", 240-ish type, right? Then you go back to the tight end class this year. Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin, Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, Mitchell Evans, Gunnar Helm. All those dudes drafted before Oronde Gadsden. And I might take one of them over him. Tyler Warren is the only one I'm taking over him. And that just goes to show when the Chargers team traded up to get him, the reason why. He had 103 targets, 3 drops. The guy was balling out, former wide receiver. He's kind of that flex slot, big slot type. And he's just an automatic easy button for Justin Herbert. And who hasn't had that since Hunter Henry. And even Hunter Henry, I would say, is not nearly the offensive weapon that Oronde Gadsden can be. Now, going into the draft, it was like, all right, am I grading him on how great he's going to be at blocking for this team? No. Honestly, he's blocked better than I expected him so far. But as a pass-catching weapon for this Chargers team, it is insane to me how quickly his meteoric rise from not playing the first 2 weeks to all of a sudden being like a top 3 tight end of the NFL, like, period. Can that continue? It should. There's no reason why it wouldn't. If you're Justin Herbert, if you're Greg Roman, why would you not go back to that well? There's nothing that is telling you that this cannot be sustainable. He's always open. He has great hands. He's smooth, has yak, and he's Justin Herbert's best friend. What else do you need? I'm pounding the table for him. I have him, Kraft, and Warren, and now I'm like, I don't care what I do in fantasy. I'm not benching Oronde Gadsden.
Good God.
Yeah. Dan's 8-man league. He's dominating him. But I
got Gadsden on waivers like 4 weeks ago.
Man, imagine what they thought of Keandre Lambert-Smith. If that's the dude they were debating with, when they ended up taking KOS instead of Oronde and had to trade back up to get Oronde. Imagine what, David, they thought of KOS considering that, because it's hard to imagine this team without him. And how long were we going to do the veteran, Band-Aid tight end? You couldn't keep doing it. He needed, and David was like, give him his Hunter Henry, give him his Antonio Gates. And David, they finally did that.
Thank the Lord. They finally did. I like you, Dan Wolkenstein, has been pounding the table to get him his next tight end and just a guy that they can partner with him for the next, hopefully 10 years, right? And I feel like, at least so far, it seems like Oronde Gadsden has the goods to be that guy. Speaking of Oronde Gadsden, it is very apparent that the Chargers general manager, Joe Ortiz, knows how to draft. Through 2 drafts, they have added potential stars like Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey, Oronde Gadsden, Tarheeb Still, and of course, a lot more, and just a bunch of contributors up and down the draft. How impressed have you been with the young nucleus that has been built so far through the draft there, Jake Hefner?
I said this on our live show over the weekend. The former regime never had a draft in 10 years that looked like the one in 2024 for Joe Ortiz. You go down that one, and even if we're just talking about outside of the ones that came in as starters,
right?
Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey. Look at now what you've gotten in depth pieces that are starting to contribute for you when you really need them to. Justin Eboigbe, Tamani Vidal stepping up. That draft looks solid right now. It's hard to even fathom getting 2 starters in every draft. That's usually the goal. But when you go through that and you find out that you also get Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart, along with Ladd McConkey and Joe Alt in the same draft, 4 potential starters right there, that's insanity for a guy coming in his first draft. And then you look at the draft this year. If Amari and Hampton hadn't gotten hurt, I mean, we'd be talking about this rookie draft class, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Amari and Hampton, Trey Harris, Oronde Gadsden, all making impact plays. Jamari Caldwell is becoming a very nice rotational piece along the defensive line. Say what you will about the criticism of Joe Ortiz during the offseason and free agency. When it's come to the NFL draft, I think he's been absolute nails, and he's hit it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the thing is like, I wish they would have addressed more on the interior of the offensive line. Totally. But looking at those pieces, like, you guys, we could have 6 of those dudes from 2024 starting this weekend. Ladd, Joe Alt, Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, right? Kamani Vidal, Justin Eboigbe.
With 4 sacks.
6
My
picks.
Goodness.
And Justin's just a great, example of player development. The dude played 26 snaps as a rookie. It gives you hope for someone like a Kyle Kennard, right? Like that is, it's crazy that they could be starting 6 of their 2024 draft picks this week in year 2. This isn't a year 4 Drew Tranquil, Kazir White breakout. Like, these dudes are hitting the ground running. And then, you talk about, Dan, this year, Amari and Hampton looks like a guy worth the first round pick. Trey Harris coming along nicely, I think, Jamari Caldwell, huge impact player for you as far as what you could expect from a rookie. I think he's outplayed all of those expectations. And then the list just goes on. And that was such a bad part of the Tom Telesco experience, was like, you might get the shiny pieces, the Rashawn Slaters, the Justin Herberts, but then what, right? Like, maybe once in a while you'd hit on a 4th round pick. The 3rd round picks outside of Keenan Allen, you could pretty much throw them all out the window for the most part. And Josh Palmer was an okay one. But, like, Dan, I didn't like what they didn't do on the interior of the offensive line, honestly. Agreed. But they might have set this offensive nucleus up for the next 4 years with really cheap, great weapons. And they could go into this next draft class where it's like, we can take every offensive skill position player and basically throw it off our draft board. Now we can build something sustainable. We have that nucleus in place. Now we can attack more measures.
100%. I'm glad you mentioned that, because yes, Rashawn Slater costs a ton of coin, but you also have Joe Alt on a rookie contract. So you average those 2 out. That's not bad for having arguably the best tackle combo in the NFL. Now, interior offensive line generally are cheaper than tackles. So you set yourself up for the next year after that, where they can go big on those. But you've got Ladd McConkey, right? Wide receiver on a rookie deal. You've got Oronde Gadsden, who's definitely going to get extended before the rookie deal is up, but he's going to be cheaper. You've got Amari Hampton, rookie deal. Trey Harris, rookie deal. KLS, rookie deal. All of that on the offense side alone. Then you go to the defensive side and you look at, you can go all down the list, right? Look at the linebackers. You look at the corners. Look at the safeties. You got R.J. Mickens, who was just drafted this year, gets an interception last week.
Awesome.
They have so many guys that are contributing early. Are they going to hit on every one of them? Of course not. There's going to be guys that are going to be missed. That's the nature of the NFL, both in free agency and the draft. But it's all about getting at bats. And in the draft, Joe Ortiz has hit so many doubles, triples, and home runs, and so few strikeouts. Yeah. And that's what the Chargers fan base has been begging for. It's like, just give me somebody that can go into the game and I'm not banging my head against the wall wondering why this guy's in the NFL.
100%. And I think that's the big thing, is just like what ended up, being one of the biggest bugaboos with Tom Telesco wasn't, the cheap, coupon Tom, selections that he made in free agencies. It was the Chris Harris Jr.'s and the Brian Bulagas and every other, 35 plus year old that he gave a 3-year contract to, and all the other big deals he handed out during that time. We won't even talk about JC Jackson. I won't even say his name.
Don't talk about Derek Cox either.
Oh God, Derek Cox. That was the first one, man.
Robert
That was the first.
We should have known that
big...
that was what we were in for a decade. Based
Travis
off of
Benjamin.
That
I mean, the list goes on and on.
No, I mean, yeah, we probably should have stopped it at DJ Fluker, and then we could have just wrapped it right there. But it does feel promising. Yes, better moves need to be made. They weren't equipped, but I do think there's something to be said about trying to build this the right way and not necessarily trying to go in all this season and trying to just build something that's sustainable and that can make you eventually a year in, year out contender. And I think that's what they're attempting to do. We'll see how long, how far along they are in the process by the way this year ends, right? But I do think there is a method to the madness and to a degree. And I would be really, really shocked if this next year, hey, we took care of the weapons, isn't about just let's throw everything we can at the trenches because now we have those skill position players all set. Like that set up cheap for the next 3 or 4 seasons. They're going to be pretty much stocked to the gills with offensive firepower.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that the Chargers team has to overcome is opposing teams know the blueprint in beating this Chargers offense. If you can rush the quarterback with 4 or hell 5 or 6, you can win and affect this game in ways that that are invaluable. So can this Chargers team combat that, whether that's this year or next year? As long as it takes for them to combat that weakness that everyone knows, they're going to go as far as Justin Herbert can with the cape. Yeah. And you can't trust that long term. It's just not sustainable.
No, they can't. And I think it wasn't good enough. They could have found more competition. I think that was the biggest thing, was just like, hey man, like if the best competition you have for the interior is Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman going at each other at different positions, not enough was done there, right? I understand not giving out 5-year, $85 million contracts, but it wasn't enough. But I do think with what you've seen in the draft, it seems pretty clear that the Chargers are in really, really good hands with Joe Ortiz. And it also makes you think maybe they shouldn't be trading away those draft picks, because when they've stuck and picked where they are, those have ended up pretty good. I think we're in for probably a very heavy trade down draft coming up in 2026, hopefully. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. A special edition Locked On Chargers. Chargers Unleashed, 8 games in. Great to kind of get your guys' feel of where the team is at right now. And also just, help us gas up Oronde Gadsden and everyone else. But thank you guys as always. These are always the funnest, best shows that we do of the year, and we need to do it more often. Hopefully we'll do a home and home. We can show up over there sometime soon. But make sure you guys are following and subscribing to the Chargers Unleashed YouTube channel and finding them wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding Dan Wolkenstein at DanW Sports and Jake Hefner at Jake T. Hefner on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And also make sure to watch my show first, because that is the Locked On Chargers podcast. You can find us at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Your team every day, your first listen. Thank you to the everydayers out there. We do these special episodes for you guys, and thank you to the boys from Chargers Unleashed for making it happen. But we're back with you guys tomorrow for the crossover episode, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Titans. Hopefully it's a bloodbath this weekend, but we'll talk to you then. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.